Okay, welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're very excited today about the topic. Our topic today for Huawei's webinar is Turbocharge your applications with Huawei servers and application accelerators. Many people don't realize that Huawei has a full line of servers, so we're excited to communicate that to you, and also our PCIe card, which is a line of some of our hottest selling products in the whole company here. Just extremely popular cards, and we'll cover that. So before we get started, I just want to thank everyone for taking time out of their day and welcome everyone to today's webinar. We will be taking questions from the audience, so if you have questions, please enter those in the Q&A panel on your GoToWebinar interface. We'll handle all the questions at the end, but please keep them coming throughout the presentation as you think of questions that you want to ask. Also, the other thing we always love to do is have polling questions, so when we do, please respond to the polling questions, and we'll share the results with everybody in the audience. As always, this webinar is being recorded and will be available on the Huawei Enterprise USA website shortly after the conclusion of the webinar. Our speaker today is Bruce Carrington. Bruce is a solutions architect with Huawei. He's one of the guys that's out in the field really putting these solutions together and understanding how they work and seeing the firsthand results of the implementations that we're doing at Huawei. So you have no better person to talk about this topic than Bruce. So without further ado, Bruce, take it away.
Well, thanks, Nick. I appreciate that, and welcome to everybody. Buenos dias to my Latin American friends out there, as well as everybody else from around the country. I think I'm coming to you today from what I'd like to say is the sunny Gulf Coast of Texas, but I'm feeling a little bit more a part of the Gulf than the coast here with the rain today. So I hope you all are having a bit better weather than I. Our agenda today is going to cover a very, very brief coverage on Huawei for those who have not sat through one of these webinars before, get a little understanding of what Huawei does. And then we're going to do a little deeper dive on Huawei servers, a part of Huawei's IT portfolio. So Huawei has a number of different portfolios, and we're focusing today on the IT portfolio. And that'll be followed by the application accelerators, which are also in the IT portfolio, the PCIe-SSD cards, as Nick referred to. And we'll have a very brief discussion of some of the customer deployments of the server and accelerator platforms. So let me dive in here without further ado. So for those of you unfamiliar with Huawei, we are a privately owned $40 billion global company. Huawei has three major business units, and for a lot of people in the marketplace who are aware, Huawei is the world's #1 LTE carrier. So we provide the LTE infrastructure for 45 of the world's top 50 telecommunications companies. That's the carrier side of the business. We also have the enterprise side of the business, where we're bringing the carrier-grade technology across our different portfolios to the enterprise space, not just here in the US, but globally. We're also on the consumer side, the world's third largest manufacturer of mobile phones. Huawei branded phones are widely available globally, and to date we have the low-end versions of Huawei phones available at Walmart along with our Android tablets. So three distinct major business units. And the product sets that we're going to talk about today come from the enterprise product group. As I mentioned, Huawei is a global company, a global partner to our customers, and we've got presence in over 140 countries around the world. We have 150,000 staff, and almost half of those are engineers. And when I say engineers, I mean PhDs and EEs. Huawei doesn't do a lot of acquisition. It's developing its own technology across the different platforms. We have been in the United States since 2001 when Governor Rick Perry opened up Huawei's Technologies headquarters in Plano, Texas. And Huawei Enterprises is actually headquartered out of Cupertino, California. Of those 17 locations, North America, thereabouts, we have 7 or 8 R&D facilities across the U.S. As well as other ones around the world. So very much a global player. Obviously, nobody stands alone. We do partner and collaborate with a variety of vendors, and certainly in the IT space, that's a very big thing. We're very much industry standard driven, and in addition to our R&D facilities, we maintain a number of interoperability facilities as well, where we work with other vendors in interoperability across platforms, whether that be hardware or software, using industry standards. And Huawei is a member of over 180 different standards boards around the world, organizations that we adhere to, and we have leadership position in a large number of those for interoperability. So Nick, over to you. It's we've only just got started, but it's already time for polling question 1.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bruce. And the first thing we want to find out is just who we're up against with respect to who you're using currently for a server vendor. If you're a reseller, which server vendor are you primarily selling? If you're an end user, which server vendor are you primarily buying? So go ahead and vote, and we'd love to just get a feel for whether you're more of an HP shop, a Dell shop, Supermicro, IBM, etc. So we'll go ahead and give you guys a few seconds to vote. Please do participate in the voting. We'd love to get the input of our audience here. Also, do keep the questions coming in the Q&A panel. Believe it or not, Bruce, we've already received 2 questions. So we really appreciate the early questions and keep those coming. But if you can, please go ahead and take just a couple seconds to vote so we can get a sense of what server vendors you're currently focused on primarily. All right, let's go ahead and close out the poll, and then we can share the results. You can see that about 2/3 are using Supermicro, about 1/3 using HP, give or take. Surprising that Dell didn't show up on the list, but I guess that's just the way it goes sometimes, huh, Bruce? So back over to you.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate that. So let's dive into the server portfolio, and this should give you some understanding and background on the length and breadth of Huawei's offering in the server space. To understand that, we have to look at Huawei's enterprise product portfolio and how big that is. As a $40 billion company, in 140 countries, we offer unified communications and conferencing, where we're number 2 and 3 in telepresence and video conferencing in the marketplace. We also have a substantial IP networking portfolio covering carrier-grade data center switching, SDN switching, WLAN switching, GSM, LTE, and we are also the leaders in microwave and optical markets as well for WAN solutions. But the area of focus that we're going to focus on today here is IT infrastructure. So the IT infrastructure portfolio, including servers and the PCIe-SSD card, which is a part of our server/storage portfolio. So in taking a snapshot, if you will, of Huawei's server portfolio, the highlighted sections here in purple. Hi, apologies for that. You can never turn everything off. But if we have a look at the purple boxes here, you can see that the blade servers and the rack servers, we have a whole range of the server platforms. That combined with the ES3000 application acceleration card, which is a PCIe-based card, can be put into any of the blades or rack servers, and not just Huawei blades or rack servers. So we're going to talk more about that as we go on, but we'll start out and have a look at Huawei's rack server portfolio. So drilling down a little bit, what is Huawei doing with servers? So as a result of working heavily in the carrier space, we've seen a convergence of information technology with communications technology, and Huawei refers to that as ICT, information communication technology, which is where we see mobility, cloud, and other things driving, big data on the back end. So we see a convergence of where people are using lots of consumer technology at work with BYOD, lots of mobile technology for whether it be in the business place for sales or at sports events with Twitter and Facebook. It's driving cloud, it's driving big data, and so we've had this convergence of a variety of data center technologies, mobile technologies, and the software in between altogether. And this is also driving the networking infrastructure. So a convergence of all these technologies has brought about the server class of infrastructure platforms that Huawei's carrier customers have used that we are now bringing to the enterprise space here in the U.S. On the server side. So we look at things like converged solutions in the E9000, which is our Blade platform, and we'll discuss that in somewhat more detail. Scale-out platforms for big data and massive data processing for cloud applications, as well as mission-critical enterprise applications, virtualization from 2-socket to 8-socket here in the U.S. In addition, we're providing acceleration capabilities, compression capabilities with the ES3000 and other solutions that we have to offer. So breaking it down a little bit further, we start out with a 1U 2-socket server, working our way up to 4-socket and 8-socket platforms on the right-hand side. In the middle, we offer a variety of 2U 2-socket servers with different drive densities, different processor technology, memory capacities, allowing lots of flexibility in how you design and architect your solutions for applications within your data center, campus, or remote sites. So very important that we've got a complete offering out there with industry standard technologies, supporting all the major operating systems, and very flexible competitive offerings. And this is a high quality platform. We'll talk more about that. So when I talk about flexibility, I'm referring to the storage capacity and the network interfaces that we have available. So you can see from the diagrams here in the pictures, it gives you a sense that we can range from, a small number of drives in a 2.5-inch form factor all the way up to 24 2.5-inch drives, or if you're using 3.5-inch drives, up to 12 3.5-inch drives in these 2U form factors. So lots of flexibility for someone who wants to architect an in-box solution with storage. By the same token, we also leverage our expertise and leadership in the networking marketplace to provide flexible NIC options and network interfaces for the servers. So we can address typical gigabit, or in the case of virtualization or other high bandwidth needs, 10 gigabit Ethernet options. The other thing that Huawei has focused on, and I got to say, I should probably say it now, that Huawei servers are used in some of the largest environments in the world. Now, you've probably talked to a lot of vendors and understand that a lot of vendors have large environments in the world. When I talk about large environments in the world, Huawei is incumbent in some of the largest providers on the planet. So your equivalents of Amazon, Google, and eBay in China, for example, are Alibaba, Baidu, and Tencent that use Huawei infrastructure. So we've proven these solutions not only in the 7x24 by 365 carrier environment, we've absolutely got these deployed infrastructure within some of the largest environments on the planet. So to that end, we want to provide our customers ease of maintenance, hot swap, no need to open the chassis, ease of replacing cards, power supplies, all of these things. Enable that tool-free installation and scalability. So, when we talk about Huawei having 70,000 engineers, a large number of those engineers are focused on the IT product portfolio and the servers, whether they be rack mount or blades. And these are the kinds of solutions that they're really working on. RAID chips for high-performance I/O and controller chips for PCIe-SSD, convergent chips for FCOE, fiber channel, TOW, RDMA, 10 gig, all of the things you need for virtualized high-performance environments or high-performance compute. Server management chips, obviously, and looking towards the future generation of networking chips, but at the same time recognizing that we need acceleration cards for things like Hadoop and other database style applications. So we're really optimizing these hardware platforms, and you'll see more of this in the Converged server product that we have. Optimizing servers for applications. And here's an example of where we work with SAP HANA to optimize using one of our RH5885's platforms. This is a quad socket platform with a Huawei ES3000 PCIe SSD card. Really maximizing the workload and optimizing the price and performance. Ensuring that we achieve optimal performance with our memory densities and to keep the cost where it's acceptable to our customers, but offering optimized performance. So if we dive into the ES9000 converged infrastructure, the ES9000 is the chassis, and we have a number of blades which I can discuss on the next slide. The E9000 is really designed around the converged cloud, high-performance compute, can be used for enterprise application or Web 2.0 applications as well as your typical other deployments. We really focused on simplicity of the converged hardware architecture, making it simple and easy, fast to deploy, but at the same time providing for high-performance, high-density computing with high-speed fabrics on the networking side, really, to give the scalability and support multiple generations of CPU architectures at the same time as being able to evaluate new networking technologies as they come along. So, we're talking upwards of 64 CPUs in a 12U chassis, a huge fabric bandwidth on the backplane of 15.6 terabytes, non-blocking, environment. Storage capacity per blade is substantial, and we're really pushing the boundaries because we have to be in some of the, I guess, environments that are challenging for a lot of vendors. We actually go to higher temperature range than most, if not all, of our competitors for those environments, particularly on the carrier side or countries where we have to sustain high temperatures. So if we have a look at the blades, this is one thing that I think Huawei has done exceptionally well. It's designed, half-width computing nodes, twin nodes, full-width computing nodes, storage expansion nodes, as well as quad-socket compute nodes in a variety of flavors. So what you get here is anywhere from 2 to 4 sockets of Intel-based processors and drives, and a variety of full height, half-length slots. But the idea here is to provide scalability in terms of processor headroom, also different capabilities on memory capacity to meet different types of applications. It's all about the applications, whilst at the same time we provide the highest performance that we can possibly do and the highest density that we can possibly achieve. So when we talk about the E9000, it's an all-in-one chassis designed for application blade servers. So as I mentioned before, compute nodes, GPU nodes, storage nodes, we can have fat nodes or thin nodes, and whilst at the same time offering a variety of connectivity on the network side from gigabit Ethernet, 10 gig Ethernet, FCOE, InfiniBand, all of the above, and fiber channel as well. So it's a very flexible solution, really designed to meet a variety of workloads, because we recognize that not all customers are the same, and not all applications are the same. You really need to work around the requirements of the application vendor, the workloads that the customer has to apply, and the connectivity options you need to storage or network to make it successful. So again, and just a brief synopsis, so these are data center servers in the E9000 converged infrastructure, VDI in a box. It could be an appliance server, high performance compute nodes all the way to 4-socket, or doing database risk to Intel architecture migrations and having a database there as well. And all of this is supported by, as I mentioned, the density of compute, the storage, the network options, all in a non-blocking Trill large layer 2 data center switching capability, InfiniBand, FCOE, whatever type of switching you need. Again, with application support with PCIe, SSD, and GPUs, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. So PCIe, SSD, and we're going to go into some depth with that, but that's just one of the hardware acceleration solutions we have for the E9000. And in this instance, this was an example of where you can improve the IOPS by 100 times, or with compression cards to Hadoop performance by 40%, et cetera, et cetera. And this really results in, competitively, we can blow out other vendors, queries on SQL, for example, by significantly less latency in the whole overall equation. So greater efficiency overall. So Nick, I think with all this information, it's time for polling question 2.
Bruce, that was truly a whirlwind tour of the Huawei server line. Excellent job. I'm glad when that alarm went off that you weren't being evacuated from your rainy situation over there. So I'm glad all is still good. So guys, our next question is really about what the criteria are. What's the most important criteria when selecting a server vendor? What is it that really makes you pick a server vendor over another? Is it their service and support? Is it overall cost of the server and the OpEx cost of managing it going forward? Is it servers that are easy to implement? Is it the reputation of the vendor, or is it something else different? So please take a second to vote. We really appreciate your participation, and we'd love to know just kind of where you sit on what is the fundamental driving factor in when you select a server vendor. So go ahead and vote, and we will tally up the votes and show you the results here shortly. And Bruce has done a great job covering the server portfolio, and he soon is going to talk about the PCIe cards, so it's really a complete package from us. We're going to go ahead and give you 5 more seconds to vote, and then we'll share the results. All right, let's go ahead and close it out, and we'll show you the results. And looks like a pretty even split on this one, Bruce. The 2 leaders are the cost and the vendor reputation, and then closely behind are service and support and ease of implementation. So pretty balanced in that area, and that's probably useful for Bruce as he goes through the rest of the presentations. So we'll go ahead and carry it on, Bruce.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate that, and thank you all for the polling feedback. So we're going to dive into application accelerators here in the IT portfolio. So most of you are probably familiar with the brand Fusion IO, which is one of the most popular PCIe SSD solutions that is OEM by IBM, Dell, Cisco, and HP at great cost. So just before, and most of you folks I'm sure on the line know what SSD storage is, right? Solid state drives. What you may not know is that Huawei manufactures its own SSD storage, and we have a number of flavors of those, and I'll talk about that. But basically SSD solid state drives, same thing that you have in your consumer grade SSD in your iPhone, in your Android phone, in your tablet. It may be an SSD drive in your laptop. Solid state, no moving mechanical components. Thus, they last longer. They're more durable. They're not subject to moving parts that break. And they have the ability to store data persistently. so that when you turn the device back on, it can retrieve the data from that solid state memory, if you will. So here's a little breakdown of the NAND flash-based memory, which retains the data. So we have single-level cell devices where each cell stores any one bit of information, multi-level cell devices, and there's a new improved eMLC multi-level cell flash. And then we have the consumer-grade triple-level cell devices as well. So typically you will see an SSD storage on the consumer drives and in some cases enterprise brands like Intel, OCZ, and others, right? These are laptop drives in a lot of cases. In some cases you'll see enterprise drives. Then we have PCIe-SSD cards. These are either full height, full length, or half height, half length, or full height, half length cards. The brands, as I mentioned, Fusion IO and a newer player, Virident, are some of the brands that you'll hear about. And then additionally to that, as we move away from spinning disk in some application instances in the storage arena, we have drive enclosures or drive storage available, storage arrays that are made up of SSD, and TMS and Nimbus data are some examples of that. Now, Huawei, being a manufacturer of its own SSDs, provides its own SSD drives, provides its own PCIe SSD, and we'll talk about how long we've been doing that for. And in addition to that, we have a complete storage array. Our Dorado storage array is a pure SSD storage array for those kinds of applications that need SSD storage. So with costs being driven down of SSD, we're seeing more prevalence in the server environment of SSD. The key thing is that each one of these things has different applications, ultimately with the same results, speeding up applications where it makes sense. So what do you need application acceleration for? Okay, I'm probably telling you all things that you know but may not think about every day. Web searching and authentication. It can be faster if it doesn't have to go out to spinning disk to read the credentials to authenticate the user. High performance compute, faster calculations, big data caching, network, again, access to hot data, that sub-millisecond times that we need to achieve to get that stuff to the processor. Email, ERP, so databases, but in particular virtualization, VDI, where you want to avoid the spinning disk latency and having to go out to a NAS or a SAN and traverse over different protocols to get that information and ultimately be slowed down by the mechanical nature of the disk that the data is stored on. Video downloading, obviously a big one today with everybody, photos and videos, all of that kind of stuff. And database applications for faster queries, fairly obvious there. So this slide talks about the industries where you see the types of application. So obviously for service providers, searching, caching, and databases, very, very important. What are the things we're addressing? Massive random read-writes, hot file read-writes, data I/O latency and scalability in databases. In the energy and finance sector, online transaction performance, business intelligence systems, or high-performance compute in the case of oil and gas. And then in the SMB space, it's still the same thing. Same, different applications, slightly different implementation, but the result is the same. Database performance, improving read on mail and collaboration systems. And then in the media side of things, you're looking at video. You need that stable high throughput and low latency, and obviously downloading and streaming information. Again, the more you can take latency out of the equation, the more solid, the better experience the end user is going to get. So really we're talking about database and hot data caching for acceleration. It's all about performance, latency, reliability, and then capacity comes into play, because today PCIe or SSD has limited size compared to its spinning mechanical counterparts. So, based on all of what I just said, the time of SSD storage is here. That's kind of like the horse is bolted already. But what we're trying to do is keep up with that CPU. Intel, amongst others, the CPUs are so fast, so they're so fast that we're waiting on that spinning disk to catch up. And you know, there's a lag time, there's a latency, and we want to you know, because of that spinning disk, we have low IOPS and a high latency. We want to turn it the other way around. We want a high IOPS and low latency, and that's really what SSD provides. Comparatively, you know, you could have hundreds of spinning disks will improve performance, but SSD, you really can cut out hundreds of disks if the capacity is what you need, and achieve less than 1 millisecond time frames and decrease user the latency. So again, it's all about different architecture for different requirements of applications in certain environments. So if we look at on the left-hand side of this screen, we're looking at memory and the CPU and how things are connected. So typically, you may have a disk array with fiber channel that you're going out to, or you might have a local SAS or SATA storage system with a RAID controller, and then you have PCIe-SSD, which is plugged into the system board. And if you look over to the right and you look halfway up this stack here, you'll see that PCIe-SSD in blue is right next to main memory in terms of the access speed. So that's where the benefit comes in compared to all the other technologies below it, which as you go slower and slower and the latency becomes substantial. That latency is the big problem. So PCIe today, SSD, the capacity that we have in our current cards is up to 2.4 terabytes, and we have a new card coming that will be 3.6 terabytes. So you get increased capacity. We're approaching the threshold for where we get great capacity with sub-second, sub-millisecond times and massive I/O capacity in terms of performance. So what about Huawei? You know, how long has Huawei been doing this? And you know, if you look at the bottom of the chart, we started in 2007. Bringing out the first PCIe SSD, which was SLC based at the time, and 256 gig. We've progressed substantially. We're on our 4th generation. We'll have the 5th generation out soon, which will give us a capacity, as I said, of 3.6 terabytes. And over those years, we've increased capacity, reduced the speed, moved to multi-level systems, which has given us a much higher performing capability as well as increased capacities and a variety of different error correcting mechanisms across the different technologies. So where do we stand relative to the other players in the market? You know, it's a really interesting thing. And here's some comments from Storage Review where we actually outperformed all other of the players they were testing, including Fusion IO, which didn't even score the highest on the performance charts. So a lower average response time, a lower latency, you know, lower times for the thread average of the processing that it was doing. And so really, when we compared, we had 20% faster IOPS, 16% faster for online transaction processing, and our write latency was 2 times the speed of others. Now that's all well and good, but I think the other thing to note here is that Fusion IO typically is sold through OEMs and is extremely expensive and wrapped up with support, maintenance, and service as a solution, and you can't buy the individual cards when you only need the individual cards. Huawei is well positioned at a price that is much more affordable, and any maintenance can be acquired separately, and is nowhere near as expensive as the competition. But our performance is way better, and there is a reason for that. So if we have a look, and I know there's a bit of an eye chart, I think the key things here, if we look at the maximum read bandwidths, the read latencies on these cards, and the IOPS, you get a sense for, you know, we're sub 50, and we really do have good read IOPS as well as good write IOPS, and the capacities are growing. So Nick, along with all of that information there, I know we're moving pretty quickly, but I think we've got some more good information to come, but I'll hand over to you for polling question 3.
Bruce, excellent overview of the PCIe. I'm going to go ahead and launch it. So right now what we're trying to find out is, Bruce talked about a lot of different features relative to the application accelerator cards, and we want to find out what is the most important feature to you with respect to PCIe application accelerator cards. Is it the high bandwidth? Is it the low latency? Is it the fact that it's integrated with the query and management tools? Or is it something different? So please go ahead and vote, and we'd love to get a feel for what your thoughts are about what's most important about the PCIe cards. If you haven't had a chance to read that storage review overview that Bruce was talking about, it's really amazing. It's one of the most thorough and just deterministic reviews I've ever read, where it just really does put Huawei out on top in terms of the overall assessment of the cards in the market. And as Bruce said, not only from a performance perspective do we beat up on the competition, but the price is lower. So there's really just a lot of reasons to go with Huawei here. So go ahead and take just another minute or two to vote, or another second or two, I should say, to vote, and then we'll close it out and show you the results. All right, let's close it out. And Bruce, I think you might be surprised that low latency was the #1 and only choice from everybody in attendance today. So that's very interesting that everybody in the audience is really focused on the latency issues and the fact that the PCIe card really helps drive the latency numbers down. So very useful information for you, and we'll let you carry on here to the finish.
Thanks, Nick. And I think that was our last polling question, but should you have any additional question, please enter them in the chat window as Nick mentioned earlier. So latency, and it's all well and good to have performance, but what about reliability? And this is something that we've built in, the data checking, the channel redundancy, the resource sharing, so you can cope with multiple chip failures or flash chip failures. The wear leveling algorithm to ensure even wear and improve the life of the product. The ECC capability to ensure that critical data is written successfully in real time. Trim technology, working with the operating systems to reclaim flash blocks efficiently and maintain that optimal performance. But at the same time, what about failure? We have built-in dynamic RAID to avoid loss during single flash failures, as well as power down protection to ensure data integrity when power fails as well. So that's key in getting a quality solution. Now I'm going to show you a few charts here that show on the left-hand side you want to be in the higher situation with the bar. And Huawei is ahead of all of its competitors in the write and read on IOPS. On latency on the right-hand side, you want to have the lower bar. And that's where Huawei has excelled in the write latency. So we have better IOPS and lower latency. We're bringing a quality solution to the market in terms of performance. Stable writes, okay, the long-term write capability, we're ahead of our competitors on that. And all of this information comes from storagereview.com, and you can go out and check it there. But what does this actually mean for applications? So here's a situation where on our converged infrastructure, the E9000 with the E3000 as the local storage for an Oracle complex SQL, 1 billion rows of data, we improved the performance time by 76%. And that's worth the investment. It's worth the investment in buying a Huawei PCIe-SSD card. it may not be worth the investment in paying substantially more for another vendor's card, but we provide, a compelling reason to utilize this technology at a reasonable price. Same thing with SQL Server, again, using the ES3000 as local storage. When you have a card that's this big, 2.4 terabytes with 3.6 terabytes to come, you've got that capacity. You can stick a whole database into one of these cards and get near memory speed of access on that. Again, SAP HANA is another application that can benefit substantially. And in this case, on our quad socket system, it reduced the response time by 90%. That's incredible. That is absolutely amazing. But that's the benefit that PCIe, when it's implemented and engineered correctly, that brings you that kind of benefit. So let's talk briefly here about customer deployments. And I've got a couple. I think they're both. One is the China Railway Engineering Corporation. So they had an issue with their management. You can imagine in China, they got trains going every freaking which way. So there's opportunity to provide a dispatching system that could handle that data. And really, they took an E9000, made it fully redundant, and it gave them that comfort level that they could handle the capacity on the backplane at the same time as providing the uptime and the resiliency and robustness needed for this kind of application in that environment. And so there's a converged infrastructure solution in a high-capacity environment using the Huawei server technology. The next example, and as our final example, of the E9000 combined with GPU and PCIe SSD cards to improve network graphics and processing performance in a research laboratory at Shanghai Maritime University. And so on that note, when I talk about laboratories and research, specifically these PCIe cards in the oil and gas industry is another area, and Huawei has some very large oil and gas related customers that are using PCIe SSD, and other customers who are OEMing our cards because of the performance and because of the price performance effectiveness of the solution that we brought to market versus the competition. We're also bringing out a 600 gig card, a smaller card for some other implementations as well. So we're extending the range of the ES3000 PCIe upwards from 2.4 to 3.6, and then downwards from 800 gig to 600 gig as well for some smaller environments, and also more cost effective. So that really brings to a close the slideware, with the exception of, why Huawei? I think Nick mentioned that, vendor recognition is a key thing. Well, so who is Huawei? And I talked about Huawei having been in the United States since 2001. The enterprise business is relatively new here, so we're very competitive on our portfolio pricing, but it's the reliability and the technology that's been around globally, predominantly outside of the U.S. for sure, but has been proven in some of the largest environments in the world. And that's the whole portfolio of information communication technology, not just the servers and the PCIe SSD cards. This is our routing, our switching, our microwave, our optical, our video conferencing, our telepresence, the WLAN 802.11ac products that we have, in addition to the enterprise LTE carrier technology that we have for mobile phones for the enterprise and specifically educational environments. We are a global data center leader with 25 years of innovation across these technologies. We are vendor neutral, so we're not looking to lock anybody into proprietary technology, which we've seen a number of vendors do this in the market. not just with networking, but with server technology. We bring to market our engineering expertise and the leading technologies by participating, interoperating with other vendors, and leading some of those forums for standards. And really, Huawei's focus is on price as well as performance, so best performance and cost efficiency. And I can tell you from my experience that's absolutely true with the engineers I've worked with at Huawei. When they look at customer solutions, they really want to bring the best solution for the application at the most cost-effective price. And Huawei is definitely not like other vendors in the way that they gouge the customer at times. And I think the proof is in the pudding. If you have a look at you know, the specs benchmarks, the TPC benchmarks for our servers, the storage review performance benchmarks, the VMarks that we have, the SAP HANA benchmarks that we have, this gives you a sense for why Huawei is a solid performer. Even if you may have not had the depth of understanding or visibility previously about Huawei Enterprise and what we can bring to the table, but we're certainly a global brand that can support customers globally and are bringing great technologies at cost efficiencies that you may not have seen before from other vendors, for sure. And so with that in mind, I think I bring up the contact information here today, the website that you can hit at HuaweiEnterpriseUSA.com. And if you have specific questions, we can go out to info@HuaweiEnterpriseUSA.com, and we have a phone number there that you can call, or maybe Nick would like to give his cell phone number out. But Nick, I think it's over to you because I've exhausted my slides and my voice, I think.
Excellent job, Bruce. As always, it's a pleasure to work with you, and fantastic overview of the Huawei server portfolio as well as the PCIe cards. And you kind of just touched on this, but this is one of the questions that came out of the audience that I just want to let you reiterate the point. So the question is, are the PCIe-SSD cards from Huawei, do they only work with Huawei systems? And currently we work with the Virident PCIe card from HP. So they're just trying to find out about our interoperability of our PCIe cards with potentially other server vendors.
Yeah, absolutely. So our PCIe card is a standard PCIe card and can go in any standard PCIe slot. So interoperability is very big for Huawei across all its portfolios, whether that be server technology, storage technology, networking, or telepresence and video conferencing. So the PCIe is an industry standard card that you can put into any vendor's industry standard slot and achieve the same performance and results based on the architecture of the platform you're using.
Excellent. And by the way, I do really recommend everyone take a look at that storagereview.com overview, because one of the comments they make is that the Virident FlashMax 2 2.2 terabyte card from HP came in towards the bottom of the pack in their MarkLogic NoSQL tests. So there's really just a lot of detailed benchmarks in terms of performance and latency and throughput for a variety of PCIe cards, not just the Fusion IO and the Huawei, but several others as well. So definitely something to check out.
Nick, on that note, I should just interject that we didn't go into a great deal of granular depth, but I do have schematics that show and the different implementations by the different vendors on their cards. And you know, some vendors, not the Virident, but some vendors like Fusion IO use system memory and resources, CPU resources, in addition to what's on their card, which can certainly reduces the performance and impacts the host system in processing. So the implementation of PCIe-SSD by different vendors is not all the same from an apples to apples perspective. They undoubtedly will all improve your application from spinning disk, but they won't necessarily cost the same, they won't necessarily perform the same or be the optimal solution. And that's one thing that Huawei has done exceptionally well with this offering, is to architect it to maximum performance, but we also just happen to offer it at a better price point as well.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for that. Next question, I think I'll probably take this, Bruce, and you can add in some color as well if you want, but it says, can you talk about how you will help VARs sell your products through email blasts and other programs that we're working on, and please be specific. And the answer to that, it all starts with becoming an authorized partner. So once you've gone through that process, which is a very quick and easy process, Bruce talked about the website, Huawei Enterprise USA. If you're not a partner already and you want to be, go on there and go to the partner page within that website, and you can easily apply to be a partner. Typically it takes about 1 day to get approved. And once you do, you have access to a suite of information that is specific to our partners, including deal registration and pricing and a variety of other things. But you'll also get assigned a channel account manager. And these are the guys that work directly with our VARs in the channel. And I'll just give you an example of a few different programs that we've done with channel partners over the past couple of months. One is a call blitz, where we had a couple of sales reps from one of our VARs come into our office in Cupertino, and we had our own inside sales guys work with them and call hundreds of different customers and work on trying to create opportunities and get deals into the pipeline. So that kind of joint calling and collaborative call blitz is definitely one example. Another partner had a very targeted database in the state of Nevada, and they wanted to blast out a specific letter that happened to be from Jane Lee, who's our COO, and that letter was encouraging these government, state and local government institutions to work with us and to be able to introduce us to the right people in their organizations. And we got over a 40% open rate on that email blast, and have a number of opportunities that have come into the funnel, the sales funnel, as a result. Again, the key was that this partner had a very targeted list of people that they wanted us to send this to. So that's a very important aspect of that program, but hugely successful. And then even more recently, we've had some local events with partners where we do some kind of a lunch and learn, or some kind of an evening presentation followed by dinner. So if you have an idea for something like that and you think you can get some qualified partners to the table, or to an email, or to respond to an email blast, please don't hesitate to work with your channel account manager, and we're more than happy to set those kinds of things up. In fact, I'd say Huawei is probably one of the most aggressive vendors that I've worked with in terms of really partnering closely and trying to help our partners generate leads. So as long as you're invested, Huawei certainly will put their skin in the game, both from a financial and from a resources perspective, to help you be successful. So that was a great question, and hopefully that was a specific answer for you. Next question, Bruce. We have a lot of people asking about demos. They want to know, where can I see a Huawei server demo, both live and also potentially, over a web kind of scenario? How do I set something like that up?
Yeah, so through our partners is typically how we would arrange that. And we also have the ability to do proof of concept testing. Certainly, if you get the information into the contact details below, that can be arranged.
Excellent, excellent. And then there's a few questions about performance on the PCIe card, and have we done a bake-off? And again, Bruce went over a lot of the technical results from the latency and performance and throughput, but definitely take a look at that storagereview.com write-up. It's an unbiased third-party company that reviewed a whole bunch of different cards, and we're just proud that we came out on the top of the stack on that review. But you'll see many detailed numbers inside of that review, so take a look at that. And then I think the last question we have here is, where can I get more information on the Huawei server products and other products? And that really points you back to the website that Bruce has up on the screen there, the Huawei Enterprise USA. If you go up there, you can see detailed product information on every product that Huawei sells in the U.S., as well as solutions that are both vertically aligned, things like the education market, the media and entertainment market, and then also solutions that we're working with certain partners. Bruce talked a little bit about SAP HANA, but we have pages specific to SAP and to OpenStack. So if you're interested more in the solution side of it, that also is available on the website. So that's definitely the place to go. And if you do have questions, and you either email that email address or call the number that's up on the screen, that'll just be the starting point, and we'll direct you to the right individual inside Huawei that'll help you get the answers to your questions and get the support that you need. Bruce, I know you've got a long drive ahead of you up to Dallas. Any final questions before we close it out, or any final comments that you want to make?
I've talked to a lot of customers at industry events, and they're hugely interested in the PCIe SSD card in addition to understanding more about our server portfolio. But the PCIe SSD is a solution that they would like to be able to get that is high performance, but they want to be able to get it more affordably because the competition, regardless of vendor, they all do it through one company. For the Fusion IO product, for example, other customers, the products are not as high performing as what Huawei offers. So we really have the best of both worlds here, and I see a lot of interest in that. So it's certainly worth the effort and the due diligence to try out these cards in your own environments with your own applications and servers, and really see if you can't get a solution that meets your needs more cost effectively.
Excellent. And just one final note, we are going to be exhibiting at the Supercomputing Show in New Orleans, November 17th through the 20th. So if you're going to be there, please let us know, and we'd love to have you stop by and say hi. With that, we're going to go ahead and close it out. Thanks to everybody for their attendance, and Bruce, special thanks to you for doing a great job covering all the products. We will see you again very soon on another Huawei webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate the host.